I remember that night like it was yesterday. My whole body was aching, my feet were killing me, and all I wanted was to fall into bed and forget about the world for a few hours. Working at the hospital as a junior doctor meant 12-hour shifts were normal, but that particular day had been brutal. We'd had 3 emergency cases back to back, and I barely had time to grab a sandwich between procedures. When I finally got home around midnight, the apartment was completely dark and silent. My roommate Dave was supposed to be visiting his parents for the whole week, so I had the place to myself. At least that's what I thought. I was looking forward to the peace and quiet, maybe watching something mindless on my laptop before passing out. I kicked off my shoes by the front door and dragged myself down the hallway. My bedroom was at the end, and I could already imagine the feeling of my soft pillow under my head. I pushed open my door, flicked on the light, and started pulling off my work shirt. That's when I heard it, the sound of my bedroom door opening behind me. My heart stopped. It literally felt like my heart skipped several beats. I spun around so fast I almost lost my balance, and there she was. A complete stranger standing in my doorway, her hand still on the door handle, her eyes wide with shock. We both froze, for what felt like an eternity but was probably just 3 or 4 seconds. Neither of us moved. Neither of us breathed. We just stared at each other in complete and utter shock. She was young, probably around my age, with dark hair tied up in a messy bun. She was wearing an oversized college sweatshirt and sweatpants like she'd been getting ready for bed. Her face went from pale white to bright red in about 2 seconds. My mind was racing. Who was this person? How did she get into my apartment? Was she dangerous? Should I be scared? Should I run? Should I call the police? 1,000 thoughts crashed through my tired brain all at once. Finally, I managed to find my voice, though it came out way quieter than I intended. "Who are you?" I asked, my hands shaking slightly. She looked like she wanted the floor to open up and swallow her whole. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," she stammered, taking a step backward. "I thought," Dave said, "I didn't know you'd be home." Now I was even more confused. "How do you know Dave?" I asked, grabbing a hoodie from my chair and quickly pulling it on. My heart was still pounding. "I'm Lily," she said, her voice shaky. "I'm Dave's girlfriend. He gave me a key and told me I could stay here this week because my apartment is being fumigated. There's a massive bedbug situation in my building and I couldn't stay there. He said you wouldn't mind." I felt my panic slowly turning into confusion and then into something like annoyance. Dave had a girlfriend. Named Lily? This was news to me. Dave and I had been roommates for almost 6 years, ever since college. We'd been through everything together. He'd helped me study for my medical entrance exams. I'd been there when his dad had that health scare last year. We told each other everything, or so I thought. "Dave never mentioned you," I said slowly, trying to process this information. "And he definitely didn't tell me anyone would be staying here." Lily's face fell. She looked hurt, confused, and embarrassed all at once. "He didn't tell you about me." Her voice was small, almost a whisper. I shook my head. "No, I've never heard your name before tonight." She stood there in the hallway looking like she might cry. "We've been dating for 3 months," she said quietly. "He talks about you all the time. He said you were his best friend." I didn't know what to say to that. The whole situation felt surreal, like I was living in some weird dream brought on by exhaustion. "Look," I finally said, "it's really late and I've had a long day. Why don't we just talk about this in the morning?" "You can take the couch tonight," Lily nodded quickly. "Of course. I'm really sorry about barging in like that. I should have knocked. I thought the apartment was empty." She backed out of my doorway and disappeared down the hall. I closed my door and sat on my bed, my mind spinning. Something about this whole situation didn't feel right. Why would Dave not mention Lily to me? Why would he give her a key without checking with me first? We always discuss things like that. When Dave wanted to have his brother stay with us last Christmas, he'd asked me 2 weeks in advance. I lay in bed for a long time that night, staring at the ceiling, too wired to sleep despite being exhausted. Through the thin walls of our apartment, I could hear Lily moving around in the living room, probably settling onto the couch. I felt bad for her. This wasn't her fault. She'd just walked into some weird situation she didn't understand either. But the more I thought about it, the more questions I had. 3 months was a long time to date someone and never mention them, and Dave had been home plenty in the last 3 months. We had dinner together at least twice a week. We watched the game together on Sundays. How had he never once brought up Lily? I grabbed my phone and opened Dave's Instagram, something I rarely checked because I was always too busy with work. As I scrolled through his recent posts, I started to notice things. Photos from last week, from the time he was supposedly visiting his parents. But in the comments there were tags from someone named Christina, heart emojis, inside jokes, comments that definitely suggested they were more than friends. My stomach started to feel heavy. I clicked on Christina's profile. It was public, filled with photos of her life, her friends, her coffee orders, and there, scattered throughout the last few months, were photos with Dave. Dave at a restaurant with his arm around her. Dave and Christina at someone's birthday party. Dave kissing her cheek in a photo from just 2 weeks ago. The caption read, 6 months with this amazing guy. 6 months. But Lily said 3 months. I sat up in bed, my exhaustion completely forgotten now. This couldn't be what it looked like. There had to be some explanation. Maybe Christina was an ex and just hadn't updated her Instagram. Maybe she was delusional and Dave had tried to let her down easy. Maybe I was misunderstanding everything, but deep in my gut I knew something was very wrong. I thought about my ex-fiancée. We'd broken up 2 years ago after I found out she'd been lying to me about small things for months. Little lies that seemed harmless at first but added up to something bigger. Trust once broken was almost impossible to rebuild. I'd learned that lesson the hard way. The next morning came too quickly. I'd barely slept, my mind running through scenarios and explanations all night. When I finally dragged myself out of bed around 8, I could smell coffee brewing in the kitchen. Lily was already up. She was sitting at our small kitchen table wrapped in a blanket, holding a mug with both hands. She looked like she hadn't slept much either. Her eyes were red, like maybe she'd been crying. "Morning," I said awkwardly, heading for the coffee pot. "Morning," she replied quietly. "I made coffee. Hope that's okay." "Thanks." I poured myself a cup and sat down across from her. The silence between us was heavy and uncomfortable. Finally, Lily spoke. "You really didn't know about me?" I shook my head. "I'm sorry. Dave's never mentioned you." "Not once." She bit her lip, looking down at her coffee. "That's really weird. He talks about you constantly. He says you're like a brother to him. He tells me stories about you guys in college, about your job at the hospital, about how proud he is of you for becoming a doctor." "He does." That part surprised me. Dave had always been supportive, but we didn't usually get that emotional with each other. "Yeah, he made it sound like you two were super close." Lily paused. "So why wouldn't he tell you about me?" That was the question, wasn't it? I took a sip of my coffee, trying to decide how much to tell her. Did I show her what I'd found last night? Did I potentially blow up her relationship based on some Instagram posts that might have an innocent explanation? But then I looked at her face, at the confusion and hurt in her eyes, and I made a decision. She deserved to know the truth, whatever it was. "Lily," I said carefully, "can I ask you something? Has Dave ever mentioned someone named Christina?" The way her face changed told me everything I needed to know. The color drained from her cheeks. "Christina?" she repeated. "No, who's Christina?" I pulled out my phone and showed her Dave's Instagram, showed her the comments, showed her Christina's profile with all those photos of her and Dave together. Lily scrolled through the photos in silence, her hands shaking slightly. When she finally looked up at me, tears were streaming down her face. "Those are from last week," she whispered. "He told me he was visiting his parents last week." "I know," I said quietly. We sat there in that small kitchen, two people who'd been strangers 12 hours ago, united by the sick feeling in our stomachs and the growing realization that someone we'd both trusted had been lying to us. The coffee had gone cold in our mugs, but neither of us moved to get more. Lily sat across from me, her phone now in her hands, scrolling frantically through something. Her fingers moved quickly, and I could see the panic in her eyes growing with each swipe. "I need to understand this," she said, her voice shaky but determined. "Show me that Instagram account again." I handed her my phone, and she started taking screenshots, comparing dates, reading comments. It was like watching someone piece together a puzzle they never wanted to solve. Every few seconds, she'd let out a small gasp or shake her head in disbelief. "Look at this," she said, turning my phone toward me. "This post from Christina is from August 15th. That was the weekend Dave told me he had to go to a work conference in Chicago. He sent me photos from the hotel and everything." I leaned in to look at the screen. Christina had posted a photo of her and Dave at what looked like a beach somewhere, both of them in swimsuits, big smiles on their faces. The caption read, "Perfect beach day with my love." The location tag said Santa Barbara, California. Did he ever go to Chicago for work? Lily asked. Not that I know of, I admitted. His company does most of their conferences in California, actually. Lily put her head in her hands. I feel so stupid. How did I not see this? You're not stupid, I said firmly. If someone's lying to you, really lying, it's not your fault for believing them. That's on them, not you. She looked up at me with red eyes. How can you be so calm about this? He's your best friend. Doesn't this make you angry? Honestly, I didn't know how I felt. Numb, maybe. Disappointed, definitely. I'd been so focused on my medical training for the past few years that I'd let my friendships slide into autopilot. Dave and I lived together, sure, but how much did I really know about his life anymore? We'd grab dinner, watch TV, talk about surface-level stuff. When had we stopped having real conversations? I think I'm in shock, I told Lily. It hasn't really hit me yet. She nodded, understanding. Then she did something that surprised me. She opened up her text messages with Dave and started scrolling back through months of conversations. If he's been lying about Christina, what else has he been lying about? I need to know the truth. I should have told her to wait, to calm down, to maybe talk to Dave first before jumping to conclusions. But something in me wanted to know too. If my best friend had been living a double life, I needed to understand how I'd missed all the signs. For the next hour, Lily and I became reluctant detectives. She went through her messages with Dave, reading them out loud when something seemed off. I pulled up his social media accounts, his tagged photos, anything public that might give us clues. The patterns started to emerge pretty quickly. Dave had created these neat little compartments in his life. He'd tell Lily he was working late when Christina's Instagram showed them at dinner together. He'd tell Christina he was visiting me at the hospital when he was actually with Lily at her place. He used his sales job, which required a lot of travel, as a cover for pretty much everything. Look at this, Lily said, her voice getting harder, less tearful and more angry now. Remember that Christina post from 6 months ago? Yeah? 6 months ago, Dave told me he had to go home suddenly because his mom was sick. He was gone for 4 days. 4 days when apparently he was starting a relationship with Christina. She laughed bitterly. I sent him flowers to his mom's house. He texted me a thank you and said she loved them. That hit me in the gut. Dave's mom was one of the sweetest people I'd ever met. She didn't deserve to be used as part of her son's lies. Wait, I said, something occurring to me. Pull up Christina's Instagram again. Lily handed me the phone and I scrolled through Christina's followers. I had a bad feeling and sure enough, there she was. A profile under the name Stephanie Chen. Her account was mostly private, but her profile picture showed her with her arm around Dave. Who's that? Lily asked, leaning over to look. I don't know, but look at her bio. It says 8 months strong with my person, with a heart emoji and a tag to Dave's account. The silence that followed was deafening. Lily's face had gone pale again. 8 months, she whispered. There's a third person? I felt sick. This wasn't just a guy who'd made a mistake or had one affair. This was systematic. This was planned. Dave had been maintaining multiple relationships simultaneously, using careful timing and elaborate lies to keep everyone separate. We need to talk to Christina, Lily said suddenly, her jaw set in determination. And Stephanie. They need to know. Are you sure? I asked. Maybe we should just confront Dave first. Give him a chance to explain. Lily looked at me like I'd grown a second head. Explain what? That he's a pathological liar? That he's been manipulating all of us? What explanation could possibly make this okay? She had a point. Still, the idea of reaching out to complete strangers to tell them their boyfriend was cheating on them felt overwhelming. What if they didn't believe us? What if they thought we were crazy? But Lily was already typing a message on Instagram to Christina. She showed me the draft. Hi, Christina. I know this is going to sound strange, but I need to talk to you about Dave. It's really important. Can we meet somewhere today? Are you really going to send that? I asked. Yes, she said firmly. If I were her, I'd want to know. She hit send before I could say anything else. Then she found Stephanie's account and sent a similar message. Now we wait, Lily said, setting her phone down on the table. Her hands were shaking slightly. I looked at the clock. It was almost 10 in the morning. I was supposed to work a shift starting at 2, but I already knew I wasn't going in. This felt important in a way I couldn't quite explain. Maybe it was about justice. Maybe it was about understanding how someone I'd trusted for years could deceive people so easily. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Dave. "Hey man, flight lands tonight around 8. Want to grab pizza?" I stared at the message. Dave had no idea that his carefully constructed house of cards was about to collapse. Part of me felt bad for him. Part of me was angry. Mostly I just felt sad. Sad that our friendship had apparently been built on my ignorance of who he really was. "Is that him?" Lily asked. I nodded and showed her the message. "Don't tell him anything yet," she said quickly. "Not until we talk to the others. He'll just come up with more lies if he knows we're onto him." Before I could respond, Lily's phone lit up with a notification. She grabbed it, her eyes going wide. Christina responded. We both leaned over the phone to read the message. "Who is this?" "How do you know Dave?" Lily's fingers flew over the keyboard. "My name is Lily. I'm Dave's girlfriend. Or at least I thought I was. I just found out about you, and I think we need to talk. There might be others." The 3 dots appeared immediately, showing that Christina was typing. Then they disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, a message came through. "Others? What are you talking about?" "Dave and I have been together for 6 months. We're exclusive." Lily and I exchanged a look. This was going to be harder than we thought. "Can we meet today?" Lily typed. "I have proof. Photos, messages, timelines. I'm at Dave's apartment right now with his roommate. Please, you deserve to know the truth." Another long pause. Then, "This better not be some kind of joke." "If you're lying to me, I'm not lying," Lily wrote back. "I wish I was. Can you meet us at Monroe's Diner at noon? It's public, safe. You can leave any time if you think I'm crazy." Finally, Christina agreed. "Fine, noon. But if this is a waste of my time, I'm blocking you." Lily let out a breath she'd been holding. "She's coming. Now we just need to hear back from Stephanie." "Are you sure you want to do this?" I asked. "Meeting up with these women, confronting Dave. It's going to get messy." Lily looked at me with a fierce expression I hadn't seen before. He made it messy when he decided to lie to all of us. "I'm just bringing the truth to light." "Don't you want to know who your best friend really is?" I did. Even though I was scared of the answer, I did want to know. Because the person Lily was describing, the person who could maintain multiple relationships through elaborate lies, wasn't someone I recognized. That wasn't the Dave who'd stayed up with me all night when I was stressed about my medical boards. That wasn't the Dave who'd helped me move into this apartment when my engagement fell apart. Or maybe it was. Maybe I'd only ever seen the parts of Dave he wanted me to see. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Dave. "Also, did my package arrive? Should be some stuff from Amazon." I looked at Lily. "He's asking about a package." "Tell him yes," she said. "Act normal. We don't want him suspicious before tonight." I typed back. "Yeah, it's here. See you at 8. As I hit send, Lily's phone buzzed. She looked at it and her face went even paler than before. "Stephanie responded," she said quietly. I moved closer to read the message over her shoulder. "I know there are others. I found out 2 months ago, but I didn't know how to leave. Can I video call you instead of meeting? I'm not in the city." Lily looked at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of emotions. "She already knew," Lily whispered. "She's been living with this for 2 months." By 11:30, Lily and I were sitting in my car outside Monroe's Diner, both of us nervous and unsure about what was going to happen. I'd called in sick to work, something I'd never done before in my entire residency. But this felt bigger than one missed shift. This felt like something that mattered. "What if she doesn't believe us?" Lily asked, checking her reflection in the visor mirror for the 3rd time. "What if she thinks we're just jealous or making things up?" "Then we show her everything we found," I said. "The photos, the timelines, the messages. Facts don't lie, even if Dave does." Lily nodded but didn't look convinced. "I keep thinking maybe we're wrong. Maybe there's some explanation we haven't thought of." I understood that feeling. Even with all the evidence, part of me still wanted to believe there was some reasonable explanation. That Dave wasn't really the person these screenshots and photos suggested he was. But I'd learned in medical school that when you hear hoofbeats, you should think horses, not zebras. The simplest explanation is usually the right one. At exactly noon, a silver car pulled into the parking lot. A woman got out looking around nervously. She was tall, with long brown hair, and she was dressed professionally in slacks and a nice blouse. She spotted us through my windshield and started walking over. "That's her," Lily said, her voice tight with anxiety. We got out of the car to meet her. Christina stopped a few feet away, her arms crossed defensively over her chest. Which one of you is Lily? That's me, Lily said, stepping forward. Thanks for coming. I know this is weird. Weird is one word for it, Christina said, her eyes moving between us suspiciously. Who are you? She asked, looking at me. I'm Tom, I said. I'm Dave's roommate. Have been for 6 years. Christina's eyebrows went up. Roommate? Dave lives alone in a condo downtown. Lily and I exchanged a glance. Another lie to add to the growing list. He lives in an apartment with me, I said. Has for years. The address is 2847 Maple Street, apartment 3B. Christina's confident expression started to crack. That's not. He told me he lived at Harborview Condos. He's never let me come over because he said the building was doing renovations. For 6 months. She said that last part slowly, like she was just now realizing how ridiculous it sounded. Why don't we go inside and sit down? Lily suggested gently. We have a lot to talk about. Christina followed us into the diner, her defensive posture softening into something more uncertain. We found a booth in the back away from other customers. The waitress came over and we all ordered coffee, though I doubted any of us would actually drink it. Once we were alone, Lily pulled out her phone. I'm going to show you something, and I'm sorry in advance because it's going to hurt. Christina sat very still as Lily showed her the Instagram posts, the photos of Dave with Lily, the text messages, the timeline of lies. With each piece of evidence, Christina's face got paler. Her hands started to shake. She pressed her lips together in a tight line like she was physically holding back tears. We've been together for 6 months, Christina said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. He talks about a future together. He met my parents last month. They love him. He told me we'd move in together next year, Lily added quietly, after my lease is up. Christina let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. He told me the same thing. Said we'd get a place with a yard so we could get a dog. She covered her face with her hands. Oh my God, I'm so stupid. You're not stupid, I said firmly. Neither of you are. Dave's the one who did this. He's the one who lied. Christina looked up at me, mascara starting to run down her cheeks. Did you know? All this time you were living with him, did you know he was doing this? No, I said honestly. I had no idea. He never mentioned Lily to me. Never mentioned you either. I thought Dave and I were close, but clearly he's been keeping a lot of secrets. There's something else, Lily said hesitantly. There's a third woman. Her name is Stephanie. She's going to video call us in about 10 minutes. She already knew Dave was seeing other people. Christina's eyes went wide. A third woman? How many of us are there? We don't know yet, Lily admitted. But we're going to find out. The waitress came by with our coffee and we all pretended to be fine until she left. Once we were alone again, Christina picked up her cup with shaking hands and took a long sip. 2 years ago, my ex-boyfriend cheated on me, Christina said quietly. It destroyed me. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't trust anyone. It took me so long to feel normal again. Dave knew that. I told him on our second date. He said he'd never hurt me like that. He promised. Her voice broke on that last word. Lily reached across the table and took Christina's hand. 2 women who should have been rivals, who should have hated each other, holding hands because they both understood the same pain. Right on time, Lily's phone started buzzing with a video call. We all leaned in as Lily answered it. A woman appeared on the screen, younger than us, maybe early 20s, with short blonde hair and glasses. Her eyes were red like she'd been crying. Hi, Stephanie, Lily said gently. I'm Lily. This is Christina and Tom. Hi, Stephanie said, her voice small. She looked exhausted. I'm sorry I couldn't meet in person. I live 3 hours away. Don't apologize, Christina said. We're just glad you're willing to talk to us. Lily said you already knew about the others. Stephanie nodded, adjusting her glasses. I found out about 2 months ago. I saw a text on Dave's phone from someone named Amy. It was pretty clear they were more than friends. When I confronted him, he got really angry. He said I was paranoid, that I was imagining things, that Amy was just a coworker. He made me feel crazy for even asking. That's gaslighting, Christina said, her jaw tight. He did the same thing to me. I found a receipt from a restaurant Dave said he'd never been to. When I asked about it, he said I was being controlling and jealous. He turned it around on me until I ended up apologizing to him. Lily was nodding along. He does that. He's really good at making you doubt your own reality. I questioned my sanity so many times. Wait, I interrupted. Who's Amy? Is there a fourth person? Stephanie's face crumpled. I don't know. After that fight, I tried to let it go. I tried to believe him, but I couldn't. So I started paying more attention. I noticed he'd have these blocks of time where he just wouldn't answer his phone. Days when he'd say he was working, but his location sharing would be turned off. He always had an excuse, always had an explanation. Why didn't you leave? Christina asked, not unkindly, just curious. Stephanie wiped her eyes. I'd just lost my job. I was depressed, isolated. Dave was the only person who seemed to care about me. He made himself essential to my life, you know? He'd check in on me constantly, bring me groceries, help me with bills. I felt like I owed him, and I was scared that if I left, I'd have no one. The table went quiet. I thought about how calculated that was. Dave had found women who were vulnerable for different reasons. Christina recovering from past betrayal, Lily new to the city, Stephanie dealing with job loss, and he'd made himself their support system. He'd made them dependent on him emotionally and sometimes financially, before isolating them enough that they wouldn't discover each other. We need to find Amy, Lily said, her voice hard with determination. If she exists, she deserves to know too. Christina was already pulling out her phone, searching through Dave's social media. I've never heard him mention an Amy. Let me check his tagged photos. We spent the next 20 minutes searching, cross-referencing names and faces from Dave's various social media accounts. Stephanie searched on her end too, looking through her own photos and messages with Dave for any clues. Got her, Christina said finally. Amy Rodriguez. She's tagged in a photo from Dave's company holiday party last December. Comments on a bunch of his posts. She showed us the profile. Amy's Instagram was mostly private, but her profile picture showed her smiling at the camera, and her bio mentioned working at the same company as Dave. She works with him, I said. That's convenient for hiding a relationship. He could see her during work hours and no one would think twice. Should we message her? Lily asked. Christina was already typing. I'll do it. I'll say I work with Dave and need to talk to her about something important. Within minutes, Amy had responded, asking what it was about. Christina took a breath and typed out, It's about Dave and his personal life. I think you should know that he's been lying to both of us. Can we talk? The response came back almost immediately. I already know he's married. He told me from the beginning. We're just having fun. The four of us stared at the screen in stunned silence. Married? Lily whispered. Dave's married? My brain couldn't process what I was reading. In all the years I'd known Dave, all the late nights talking, all the times we'd hung out, he'd never once mentioned being married. There was no wife, no wedding ring, no photos, nothing. That can't be right, I said. He's not married. I'd know if he was married. Christina's fingers were flying across her keyboard. Amy, this is going to sound crazy, but are you sure he's married? Have you met his wife? Amy's response, no, but he showed me pictures. Her name is Jennifer. They've been married for 4 years. She knows about me. They have an open marriage. Oh my God, Stephanie said from the phone screen. Is any of what he's told any of us actually true? That was the question, wasn't it? How deep did Dave's lies go? The rest of the afternoon felt like waiting for a storm you could see coming but couldn't stop. Christina went home to gather more evidence and get herself mentally ready for what was going to happen. Stephanie started her 3-hour drive to the city. Lily and I went back to the apartment to prepare. I need to clean up, Lily said, looking around the living room like she was seeing it for the first time. I don't know why, but I need to clean. I understood that impulse. The need to control something when everything else felt chaotic. So we cleaned. We vacuumed, washed dishes, organized the coffee table. It gave us something to do besides think about what was coming. Around 6, Lily's phone rang. She looked at the screen and her face went white. It's Dave. Don't answer it, I said quickly, but she was already swiping to accept the call. Hello? I could hear Dave's voice through the phone, cheerful and casual. Hey, babe. Just landed a bit early. Thought I'd check if you wanted me to bring anything by later. Lily's hand was shaking. No, I'm good. Thanks, though. You okay? You sound weird, just tired. Long day. She was gripping the phone so hard her knuckles were white. All right, well, I'll see you soon. Love you. Lily's eyes filled with tears. Yeah, see you soon. She hung up without saying it back. She dropped the phone on the couch and covered her face with her hands. He said he loves me. How can he say that when everything is a lie? I didn't have an answer for that. I'd been wondering the same thing about friendship. Had Dave ever actually cared about me? Or had I just been useful to him somehow? A convenient roommate who worked long hours and didn't ask questions? By 8:30, everyone had arrived. Stephanie got there first, looking nervous and exhausted from the drive. She gave Lily a hug like they were old friends instead of women who'd met on a video call just hours ago. Christina arrived next, her eyes red but her jaw set with determination. She'd changed into jeans and a t-shirt, like she'd needed to shed the professional armor and just be real. We all sat in the living room, an odd group of people brought together by deception. No one really knew what to say. What do you talk about while waiting to confront someone who's been lying to all of you? How did you two meet? Christina finally asked Lily, breaking the uncomfortable silence. Lily managed a small smile. At a coffee shop, actually. I'd just moved here for work and didn't know anyone. I was sitting alone working on my laptop and Dave came over and started talking to me. Said he couldn't help but notice I looked lost. He offered to show me around the city, recommended good restaurants, places to avoid. He seemed so genuine, so kind. He told me almost the same story, Christina said quietly, except we met at a work networking event. I'd just gotten promoted and moved to a new department. I didn't know anyone yet. He made me feel seen. Stephanie nodded from her spot on the floor. He found me when I was at my lowest, right after I lost my job, right when I felt like everything was falling apart. It's like he has a radar for people who are vulnerable. I thought about that, about how Dave had never tried to manipulate me the same way he'd manipulated them. Maybe because I wasn't vulnerable in the way they were, or maybe because he needed me stable and oblivious to maintain his lies. A roommate who was never home, who was too tired to ask questions, who trusted him completely. Do you think he actually cares about any of us? Lily asked, her voice small. Or was it all just an act? Before anyone could answer, we heard footsteps in the hallway outside. A key turning in the lock. Dave was home. The room went completely silent. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The door swung open and Dave walked in, rolling his suitcase behind him, talking on his phone. Yeah, man, it was great seeing everyone. Mom says hi, by the way. He was smiling, completely relaxed, until he looked up and saw all of us sitting there staring at him. His phone slipped from his hand and clattered on the floor. The color drained from his face. His eyes moved from person to person. Lily on the couch, Christina in the armchair. Stephanie on the floor, me standing by the window. And you could see the exact moment he understood what was happening. What? His voice came out as barely a whisper. What is this? No one spoke for a long moment. Then Christina stood up, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. This is all of us, Dave. All the women you've been lying to. All in one room. Surprise. Dave just stood there, frozen, his suitcase handle still in his hand. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. I can explain, he finally said. Explain what? Lily asked, standing up too. Explain how you've been dating all of us at the same time. Explain how you've been lying about where you live, where you go, what you do. Explain how you told Amy you were married when you're not. At the mention of Amy's name, Dave's face went even paler. You talked to Amy? We talked to everyone, Christina said. We compared notes. We looked at timelines. We found all your lies, Dave, every single one. Dave finally moved, letting go of his suitcase and taking a step into the room. Look, I know how this looks, but it's not what you think. Then what is it? Stephanie asked, her voice shaking but strong. Because it looks like you've been systematically lying to multiple women for months. It looks like you found people who were vulnerable and made yourself essential to their lives, so they'd be less likely to leave. When they found out the truth, that's not... Dave ran his hand through his hair, looking around the room desperately. I never meant to hurt anyone. It got complicated. Complicated? Lily's voice rose. You made it complicated. You chose to lie every single day. You chose to tell me you loved me while you were saying the same thing to Christina and Stephanie. You chose to build entire fake stories about work trips and family emergencies and business conferences. Dave's expression started to change. The shock was wearing off and something else was creeping in. Not remorse, not shame. Something that looked almost like annoyance. What did you want me to do? Break up with all of you? I cared about all of you. I didn't want to hurt anyone. The audacity of that statement hung in the air. Christina actually laughed, a bitter, disbelieving sound. So your solution was to lie to everyone? To make us all believe we were in exclusive, committed relationships while you were juggling multiple women behind our backs? That was supposed to hurt less? You don't understand, Dave said, his voice taking on a defensive edge. Being with just one person, it's never been enough for me. I need variety, excitement. But I didn't want to be alone either. So yeah, I dated multiple people, so what? Lots of people do it. Not without telling the other people involved, Lily said, her voice breaking. That's the difference, Dave. Polyamory is fine when everyone consents. This wasn't that. This was lying. This was manipulation. I finally spoke up from where I'd been standing silently by the window. You lied to me too, Dave, your best friend. Your roommate for 6 years. You never once mentioned any of these women. You never told me you were struggling with monogamy, or that you wanted to date multiple people. You just lied. Dave turned to look at me, and for a second I saw something that might have been guilt cross his face. I didn't think you'd understand. You didn't give me the chance to understand. You didn't give any of us the chance to make informed decisions about whether we wanted to be part of your life. Dave was quiet for a moment. Then he did something I didn't expect. He sat down on the floor right there in the entryway and put his head in his hands. When he looked up, there were tears in his eyes. I don't know why I did it, he said, his voice cracking. I don't know what's wrong with me. It started small, just dating 2 people at once, and I told myself I'd figure it out. But then it got bigger, and I didn't know how to stop. Every time I thought about coming clean, I'd imagine losing everyone, and I couldn't handle that. So I just kept lying. Stephanie wiped her own tears away. Did you ever actually care about any of us? Or were we just, I don't know, collectibles to you? I cared, Dave said, and his voice sounded genuine for the first time since he'd walked in. I know you have no reason to believe me, but I did care about all of you. That's what made it so hard. I didn't want to hurt anyone. I didn't want to lose anyone. But you did hurt us, Christina said quietly. You hurt all of us. And you're going to lose all of us anyway, Dave. Because none of us can trust you. None of us can be with someone who lies this easily, this completely. Dave nodded slowly, tears streaming down his face now. I know I messed up. I know there's no fixing this. Lily sat back down on the couch, suddenly looking exhausted. I just need to understand. When you told me you loved me, did you mean it? Or was that a lie too? Dave looked at her, and for once he seemed to be genuinely thinking about his answer. I meant it. In the moment, I meant it. I think that's the problem. I meant it every time I said it to each of you. I compartmentalized. When I was with you, you were my whole world. And then when I was with someone else, they were my whole world. I never thought about the fact that you all deserved someone who made you their whole world all the time. Not just in moments. The room fell silent again. It was a weird kind of honesty. Too little and too late, but honest nonetheless. Christina was the first to stand. I don't accept your apology, she said firmly. And I don't forgive you. What you did was cruel, whether you meant it to be or not. The next 2 weeks were awkward in ways I couldn't have imagined. Dave and I lived in the same apartment but barely spoke. He'd leave for work early and come home late. I picked up extra shifts at the hospital, partly because I needed the money and partly because I didn't want to be home. I got texts from Lily every few days. Just checking in, she'd say, seeing how you're doing. We'd fallen into this weird friendship born from shared trauma. She was seeing a therapist now, working through the trust issues Dave had left her with. Christina had apparently joined a support group for people who'd been in manipulative relationships. Stephanie had moved back in with her parents and was focusing on finding a new job. They were all healing in their own ways, and surprisingly, they were healing together. Lily told me they'd started a group chat, the 4 of them, women who'd been hurt by the same person. They shared resources, recommended therapists, sent each other funny memes when the pain felt too heavy. Something good had come from something terrible. On Dave's last day in the apartment, I came home from a shift to find him packing the last of his boxes. He looked tired, older somehow, like the weight of what he'd done had physically aged him. Got a place lined up? I asked, leaning against the doorframe of his room. He nodded. Studio apartment across town. It's small, but it's mine. He paused in his packing. Tom, I really am sorry. I know saying it doesn't change anything, but I need you to know. I thought about that. About apologies and whether they meant anything without changed behavior to back them up. Are you getting help? I asked. Yeah. I started seeing a therapist last week. She thinks I might have some attachment issues, fear of abandonment, stuff from childhood. Doesn't excuse what I did, but at least I'm trying to understand why. That was something, I supposed. Good. You should keep going. Dave closed the box he'd been packing and sat down on his bare mattress. Can I ask you something? Did you suspect it all? Even a little bit? I thought back over the past few years. Had there been signs? Probably. Times when Dave's stories didn't quite add up. Occasions when he'd been weird about his phone or his schedule. But I'd been so buried in my own life, so focused on my residency and my own problems that I hadn't paid attention. Maybe, I admitted, but I trusted you. I didn't think I needed to question everything you said. That's the thing about trust, Dave said quietly. It's so easy to break and so hard to rebuild. I broke it with everyone who mattered to me. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Dave stood up and grabbed the last box. I'll have the rest moved out by tonight. I'll leave my key on the kitchen counter. I nodded and moved out of the doorway so he could pass. As he walked toward the front door carrying his box, he stopped and turned back. For what it's worth, you were a good friend. The best friend I ever had. I'm sorry I wasn't the same for you. Yeah, I said. Me too. After Dave left, the apartment felt different. Emptier, but also cleaner somehow. Like something toxic had been removed and now the space could breathe again. I called Lily. He's gone, I told her. Moved out this morning. How do you feel? She asked. Weird, sad, relieved, all of it at once. That makes sense. It's okay to feel complicated things about complicated situations. How are you doing? I asked. Better. Some days are harder than others, but I'm getting there. Actually, Christina, Stephanie, and I are meeting for dinner tonight. Kind of a healing circle thing. You should come. I hesitated. I don't want to intrude on your thing. You're not intruding. You were part of this too. Dave lied to you just like he lied to us. Besides, we'd like to see you. You helped us that first day when you could have just stayed out of it. So that night I found myself at a restaurant downtown, sitting at a table with 3 women I barely knew but somehow felt connected to. We talked about everything except Dave at first. Work and hobbies and shows we were watching. Getting to know each other as actual people rather than just victims of the same guy. But eventually, the conversation turned to what had happened and how we were all moving forward. I've been thinking a lot about red flags, Christina said, swirling her wine glass, about how to spot them earlier next time. My therapist says I need to trust my gut more. If something feels off, it probably is. I'm working on not making people my whole world so quickly, Lily added. I tend to dive deep fast, and that made me vulnerable to someone like Dave. I need to build a fuller life, more friends, more connections, so one person can't have that much power over me. Stephanie nodded. I'm learning to speak up when something bothers me instead of talking myself out of my own feelings. Dave was really good at making me doubt myself. I don't want to let anyone do that to me again. They all looked at me expectantly. What about you? Lily asked. What are you learning from all this? I thought about it. I guess I'm learning that you can't really know someone just by living with them or being friends for years. People are capable of hiding huge parts of themselves if they want to. And that's scary, but it's also taught me to pay more attention, to ask questions, to not just assume everything is fine because it looks fine on the surface. Christina raised her glass, to paying attention, to trusting our guts, to not letting anyone make us doubt our reality. We all clinked glasses. An odd little group bonded by betrayal but choosing to move forward together instead of staying bitter alone. Over the next few months, something unexpected happened. Lily and I became actual friends, not friends born from trauma, but genuine friends who enjoyed each other's company. We'd meet for coffee before my hospital shifts. She'd text me funny things she saw during her day. I'd call her when I had a rough night at work and needed to talk to someone who got it. One evening about 3 months after Dave moved out, Lily and I were grabbing dinner at a casual restaurant near my apartment. We'd just ordered when she suddenly went quiet, staring at something behind me. What's wrong? I asked, turning to look. Dave was there, sitting at a table across the restaurant with a woman I didn't recognize. They were laughing, leaning close to each other, very clearly on a date. Lily's face had gone pale. Do you think he's doing it again? Do you think she knows? I watched them for a moment. Dave looked happy, carefree, like nothing had ever happened. The woman with him looked completely smitten, hanging on his every word. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe he really did get help and he's doing things differently now. Or maybe he's falling back into old patterns. Should we warn her? Lily asked. It was a fair question and one I'd been turning over in my mind since I'd spotted them. I don't know if it's our place, I said carefully. We told him he needed to change. We can't follow him around forever making sure he does. Lily bit her lip, clearly torn. But what if he hurts her the way he hurt us? Then she'll have to deal with it the way you dealt with it, I said gently. You can't save everyone, Lily. And you can't let Dave's presence in the world keep controlling your life. At some point you have to let it go and focus on your own healing. She nodded slowly, tearing her eyes away from Dave's table. You're right. It's just hard. I know it is. We finished our dinner without looking at Dave's table again. As we were leaving, we had to walk right past him. He glanced up and our eyes met for just a second. I saw recognition, maybe a flicker of shame, but then he looked away and continued his conversation with his date like nothing had happened. Outside on the sidewalk, Lily let out a long breath. Seeing him didn't hurt as much as I thought it would. That's growth, I said. She smiled at me. You know what's weird? If none of this had happened, we never would have met. We never would have become friends. And as much as that whole situation hurt, I'm grateful for this friendship. Me too, I agreed. And I meant it. That night, walking back to my apartment alone, I thought about everything that had happened. About how a stranger walking into my room without knocking had led to all of this. To uncovering lies, to confronting hard truths, to unexpected friendships. My breath had frozen that night when Lily first appeared in my doorway. I'd been scared, confused, thrown completely off balance. But looking back now, I realized that moment had been important. It had shaken me out of my comfortable ignorance. It had forced me to see that the life I thought I was living wasn't the whole picture. Sometimes the worst moments crack us open in ways that let the light in. Sometimes the people who stumble into our lives unexpectedly are exactly who we needed to meet, even if the circumstances are messy and painful. I thought about Dave too, about whether people really could change or if they just got better at hiding who they were. I hoped he was working on himself. I hoped his therapist was helping him understand why he'd done what he did. But more than that, I hoped he'd learned that love, real love, wasn't about collecting people or compartmentalizing relationships. It was about being honest, being present, being willing to be seen fully even when that felt scary. As for me, I was learning to pay attention, to trust my instincts, to build friendships slowly and carefully, to understand that being a good friend meant being honest, even when honesty was uncomfortable. My new roommate moved in the following week. His name was Chris, and he was a physical therapist at a different hospital. During his interview, I'd been upfront about why my last roommate had moved out. I'd told him the whole story, watching his face carefully for his reaction.